Okay, well, thank you. Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we are living in a new era of possibility, and I want to talk a little bit about how I see that era and what its key components are. In many ways, this new era really began with the fall of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin Wall, I guess you could say, at the end of the 1980s. And clearly the 1990s and the period leading up to September 11th was a period of what appeared to be great possibility. And then with September 11th, kind of everything went on hold, and all the sort of optimism and progress that had come out of the fall of the Soviet Union and what some were already calling the unipolar moment suddenly really disappeared. And we entered this period, which I would say more than anything else was characterized by fear. Now, it's understandable that America was fearful after September 11th, but really the beginning of fear is the end of freedom, and the end of fear is the beginning of freedom. And I think what happened with the response to September 11th was that the entire country essentially became somewhat traumatized, and I think, quite frankly, that the administration did not do anything to discourage that, and arguably contributed to this climate. Many of you probably flew in here, as I did, and one thing I noticed as I was entering the airport was sort of in the background, the loudspeaker was saying, "The threat level today is orange." I don't know if any of you heard that, but it's kind of reached the point now where those sort of pronouncements that go on in the background are almost like background noise. You don't really pay so much attention to them anymore. And we've just come through, and we're actually sort of still in the midst of what's been an incredibly wonderful, in some ways, and cathartic experience for our country, which is the reassertion of democracy in this political campaign. So at the same time that you can say, well, it would have been nice if the Democrats had picked their candidate a little bit easier earlier in the session, this incredible exercise of democracy, I think, has helped to kind of lift us out of that fearful atmosphere that we were really in for a number of years after September 11th. And we are now clearly, as we approach a new administration, entering a new era, which is, I think, going to be one of great possibility. So what are some of the things that we can look forward to if we begin to think of our engagement with the rest of the world in a hopeful, positive way, as opposed to kind of a fearful way? Because if you think about it, the Bush years were years of kind of initially almost a giddy fascination with America's sort of power as the single, I guess, superpower, but yet at home this kind of like this fearful nature towards the rest of the world. This idea that we weren't even going to engage with old, quote unquote, old Europe, and that essentially we were alone out there with perhaps a small coalition of the willing, and that the world was something hostile that was not part of not an arena for creating good things, but rather something that we had to fear. I think we've moved past that point, and as much as we still have to deal with the Iraq situation, Afghanistan, and the other many trouble spots around the world, we also, I believe, will have an opportunity to kind of reestablish America's reputation and also America's role in the world. And clearly, Obama's trip next week is going to be part of that. I mean, there's every indication that that he's going to be kind of greeted by immense crowds, and that this is viewed in many ways as kind of a homecoming of America back to its role as kind of an international leader. Let me shift from that to talking a little bit about the issues that I'm working on at NDN, which are primarily green issues. And as Al Gore mentioned today, this global challenge of climate change is something that inherently brings everybody together. It's one where global leadership is required, and where the U.S. is really uniquely qualified to lead a process that will actually address this problem. And it's, again, something that as part of our disengagement in recent years, we've stepped back from, and we now have to step forward to meet fully. This is an issue where, first of all, on a very practical level, the U.S. has to come up with a policy prescription on how we are going to address greenhouse gas emissions. But secondly, it's one where just think of the ability of if for example the people of China, which is now the largest greenhouse gas emitter, even larger than the United States, were to begin to organize, because they are the ones who are breathing, the what's coming out of Chinese smokestacks every day. If they were to work together and sort of at a grassroots level change their country's policy, what that could do. Al Gore is trying to really create a grassroots movement here in the U.S. to get the American people to similarly put pressure and organize and get activated to put pressure on our government to do something. But imagine if a global coalition from the grassroots could come together and basically exercise its power that it now has under this new technology, what we could accomplish. So this is very much a time, I think, when the technology is creating new opportunity and possibility, when the end of the Bush administration and hopefully the beginning of a new Democratic administration will create a different outlook towards the rest of the world, and where the U.S. is poised to once again, really lead. And I think Obama is very well suited to do that, assuming that he becomes the next president. So there are any number of issues that, when you think about them, are just, if you kind of have a glass full attitude as opposed to a glass half full attitude as opposed to a glass half empty attitude, where U.S. leadership could make a tremendous difference. Climate change is clearly one of them. Raising people out of poverty, which is another issue that NDN has been engaged in, is something where U.S. leadership could make a huge difference. Addressing the various security challenges in a hopeful way as opposed to a kind of fearful way is something where we could begin to, as Simon said at the outset, kind of build an alliance for progress that could really transform the way the U.S. interacts with the rest of the world. So granted, at any moment there could be a crisis that could kind of put people back in that fearful mood. But at the moment, I think there is a tremendous opportunity to start doing positive things that bring people together to solve challenges, as opposed to separating us from one another, which inevitably protracts and makes meeting these challenges more difficult.